As I think about my deconstruction and I think about the places that I have questions in my faith, I think about, where can I sometimes pause to get a rest, to get a break from me trying to figure things out, because that's what I do a lot. I'm always trying to figure out the answers to my questions. And in this story, we see the birth of something new. And where could maybe I have a place of new birth in my journey of faith as I'm walking with Jesus into 2023? Welcome to the Rethinking Christianity podcast, a home to conversations focused on rethinking, challenging, and engaging with Christian thought. You can visit us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube at Rethinking Christianity Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Fine, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope that you all have had a good holiday season as we move into the new year. I hope that you've had a good year. I hope that things are going well for you. And I hope that today's episode will be something that can be encouraging for you. I wanted to do something Christmas specific, but I wanted to do it and think about it from a different angle. And so with today's episode, we're going to look at the Christmas story, not really in detail, but we're going to look at the idea of new birth in the Christmas story and the birth of Jesus and what that means for our faith as we are in the midst of a journey of faith and in the midst of maybe for you as a listener, wherever you're at, maybe you're deconstructing, maybe you're dealing with doubt, maybe you're dealing with questions, maybe you're dealing with confusion. And so today I wanted to do this episode. When I think about the idea of birth and a fresh start, I think about this cherry blossom tree that is outside of a coffee shop that I work at where I live. And ever so often what will happen, especially in the spring, this cherry blossom tree will lose all of its flowers. The petals will fall off. And as spring begins, you'll kind of see this tree begin to rebloom these petals, these flowers, and it's really, really pretty. But what's really interesting is here in Georgia, we have really weird weather. So like sometimes what you'll have happen is there are these moments where it'll be cold for like a little while, and then we'll just have this random like 70-degree day, and this tree kind of like gets confused, and in the midst of that, it will like blossom these flowers in the middle of the winter. And whenever I see this, it's just kind of like this thinking. It reminded me of this idea of like new birth and this idea of a fresh start, or something that is blooming, that is new, and something that is good, right? We enjoy seeing things like that. So as we look at this, I'm thinking from this perspective of a new birth, a fresh start. And my hope is that maybe you can find some personal meaning in your faith journey from the Christmas story for the coming year. The Christmas story, it begins in this unexpected place, this unexpected story. There's a story where there's these two young kids, really, like at least we know for certain Mary was very young, and Joseph, and they are getting ready to get married as they would do in that time period. And Mary was to be the wife of Joseph, and this news breaks to them, and this news happens that Mary's pregnant, and Mary is having this child. But the issue with that, the plot twist of this story, is that Mary is a virgin, and Joseph has not slept with her. And so this baby boy to be born is one that is in the midst of chaos. It begins this chaotic story, and the plot twist is that she's a virgin, right? And this begins this like questioning and this worry and this concern and this anxiety and this fear that Mary and Joseph are wrestling with and dealing with in this story. And they're both approached by two angels, right? And these angels come to them and say, hey, it's going to be okay. Have peace, because what you are about to experience and witness, and for Mary, the son you're about to have, is one that is going to bring hope, and this new birth is going to bring peace, and this new birth is going to be redemption for the story of the humanity of people and in God's story, right? And so when we think about this story, we think about the birth, and we think about the miracle of it, and we think about the specifics of it. And in this story, there's a moment where Joseph he's getting ready to divorce Mary. He was going to do it secretly. But this angel comes to Joseph, and it says this: an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, don't be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you're going to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. And all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet: the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. God with us. This idea that Jesus is who brings about this ability to be with God, to walk with God, to like journey on faith with God. And this story, we think about this story a lot of times in Christianity as the fulfillment of, prophecies and the fulfillment of the story of the scriptures. But what I want to do is I want us to look at this story as an angle for this idea of new birth. As we move into 2023, what a lot of times happens is Christmas comes and goes. Christmas comes on the 25th, and once it's over, we don't really talk about it until the next year, the next Christmas. And what if this concept of new birth, a fresh start in our faith journey, illustrated by this Jesus being born in an unexpected place, what if that was, something that we could take note of and think about in regards to our journey of faith? This is a story of hope and new birth from an unexpected place, a chaotic place. And we see even after Jesus is born, the story tells us that Jesus is born and that he is at threat of dying and being killed by a king, and they escape to Egypt. And so this story has all these twists and turns and these chaotic moments and these doubtful moments and these confusing moments. And for many of us, this is kind of what our faith journey looks like, that we have these moments of confusion and chaos and unexpectedness and worry and concern, and we wrestle with all of these questions that we have about our faith and our deconstruction and all of that, right? And what if this story, as we look at this story and we approach this story, what if we approach it from a different angle? What if we thought about new birth and new hope and a fresh start as something illustrated by the story of Jesus, that as Jesus is born in the midst of this chaos, there's a new life, one that is God with us, born in the midst of all of this. And for me, as I think about my deconstruction and I think about the places that I have questions in my faith, I think about, where can I sometimes pause to get a rest, to get a break from me trying to figure things out, because that's what I do a lot. I'm always trying to figure out the answers to my questions. And in this story, we see the birth of something new. And where could maybe I have a place of new birth in my journey of faith as I'm walking with Jesus into 2023, that I could set aside these questions that I have. I could set aside maybe the hurt that I've experienced. I could set aside some of those things. And that's not to say that you have to do that or to diminish the things that you're dealing with. But I think sometimes we need to pause and we need to think about, where can we reapproach our faith and our journey of faith? And where can I pause? Where can we look at the life of Jesus and the birth of Jesus? Because when we celebrate the birth of Jesus, we're not just celebrating it to celebrate the birth of a baby. We're celebrating it because it was the start of something that brings about hope, right? It was the start of this life that Jesus lived. And we celebrate the birth as the life of Jesus, and it brings out an opportunity for us to look at the life of Jesus and model and follow that. As I've mentioned, where are you at maybe in your doubt and your confusion, as I am? You have questions, or maybe you're just tired of your faith journey. Maybe you're just exhausted from trying to get it all right? And I want to choose to see the story this year as a challenge to myself to find the places in my, experience of faith, to pause, to set aside my assumptions, my opinions, all the things that I have and will always have, and maybe just pause and allow myself to reapproach Jesus, to pause and to find new birth in my approaching of Jesus, a fresh start in my approaching of Jesus, a new hope in my approaching of Jesus. And what if the Christmas story for your deconstruction and maybe your reconstruction, whatever you would like to call it, could provide a place to think about this idea as a fresh start, a new place of beginning. Because that's what the Christmas story is. It's a new place of beginning. And in the story of the scriptures, we see it as a new place of beginning for the redemption of humanity, that God using and allowing Jesus to be born to bring people into relationship with him so that they can walk with him. But what if this story as well was something that reminded us of places in our life where we need to pause as we are exhausted, places where we need to pause where we're overthinking, places where we've allowed our faith to create anxiety and fear. And where are the places in our lives that we need to take a moment and just stop, right? Where are the places in your faith that need renewal and rebirth? And so I was thinking about this from a practical standpoint. What could I suggest? What could I give you maybe that could help you think about this? And there were two things that I kind of thought about, and I think these are two of the more important things. One, it takes away a lot of our thinking. And where can maybe you find spiritual practices, a new spiritual practice? So that could be prayer, silence and solitude, journaling, and devotional reading, reapproaching how you read the scriptures. I know a lot of people really struggle with that, but there's a lot of really good resources out there on that of how to reapproach this. The Bible for Normal People offers some really interesting stuff on that. But where can you find the Christmas story allowing you to say, okay, I'd like to reapproach my faith in this coming year as a place of new birth and new hope and a refreshing new start? Well, maybe one of the ways you can do that in this year is find new spiritual practices in your walk to implement into your days so that you can kind of reapproach what it looks like to walk with Jesus and be challenged by Jesus and be challenged by the Spirit and be challenged by maybe what He is asking you to do as you follow Him, as you try to follow Him. And this can be done in the midst of your deconstruction, in the midst of your doubts. So that's the first thing. I think thinking through where are the places, one, specifically what spiritual practices could maybe you add to your journey of faith, and where in your day, where in your week, where in your schedule, where in your busyness could you set aside a place of, I'm not trying to figure it out, that place of I'm just going to pause, and I'm just going to try and be with God, be with something bigger than myself, and that being Jesus. So where can you find new spiritual practices to participate in the coming year as a place of rebirth in your journey of faith? The second is there opportunities for you to have community, right? And I know this is really sensitive for some people because it's hard because maybe you've been hurt by the church. And, when you think about church, if you are with people who are looking to be on a journey of faith and you 3 or 4 meet at a coffee shop, or you do a Zoom call with someone, or you just talk to someone once a week on the phone, that is what church is. That is what community is. And so is there opportunities for you to find maybe community, people that are like-minded, people that are also struggling and walking and journeying? And there are many people out there that maybe you don't think are wrestling with these things, but they are. Some of the people that have been so vital to my faith and so vital to my journey of faith and understanding it were people I did not expect. Caleb, who's been on the podcast numerous times, who helps host sometimes, we just kind of randomly had a conversation about our doubts and our questions, and he was like, oh, you struggle with those things too. I do as well. And so maybe there are places where you can find those people who are wrestling with that and struggling with that, because I think that the community aspect of our journey of faith is up there. I think, honestly, number one, you need people that you can walk on as you're reapproaching Jesus or having a restart, right? So those are the two things that I think that maybe you could do. And the story of Jesus and his birth is one that brings hope as his life, right? It was a part of a redeeming plan. And so where can Jesus bring hope in how we live amongst each other and with God this year as you kind of reapproach your faith? And so this is another thing that you can do. And as you're listening to this is what I want you to do. I want you to take some time to just write down honestly where you are at in your faith and pause. And just see where that place is at and see if that could be a new starting point for you, right? Where are you in your faith? And see if reapproaching Jesus as one who could shape as a new start in your faith, right? Maybe that could help you this year. Maybe that could be something that would be different this year. And when you think about the Christmas story, could the Christmas story become not just a story that you hear over and over again? Could the Christmas story be one each year that challenges you where you're at on your journey as a place to find new hope and a restart and a refreshment? Right? And my hope is that you would find peace, in your journey, that you would find a place of rest, because that is what it means to follow Jesus, to have peace and to have hope. And as we kind of like think through this, I hope that you truly do have a great holiday season or have had one. I hope that you have a great new year. And if you have any questions or you ever just need to vent about something, you can reach out to me through Instagram. I usually see all the messages. But as I close out, I just want to end with this Richard Rohr quote. I think that gives some really good insight as to choosing to follow maybe in the midst of your questions, choosing to be with Jesus in the midst of your doubt. And that's kind of what I want to get at here, is that could we choose to see the story of Jesus and his birth as one that brings us up to a place of opportunity, a place of opportunity to live our faith out and restart our faith and reapproach our faith as we question things. So here's this quote by Richard Rohr. Jesus is not telling us to believe unbelievable things as if that would somehow please God. He is much more saying to us, try this, and you will see for yourself that it is true. That initial trying is always a leap of faith into some kind of action or practice. That initial trying is always a leap of faith into some kind of action or practice. Where could the Christmas story and the birth of Jesus bring about you taking the time to pause and allow it be an opportunity for you to take a leap of faith and to step into something new this coming year? I hope that this episode is helpful for you, and I hope that things will continue to go well for you. And if they aren't, I hope they do get well for you. And I hope that your journey of faith becomes one that brings about peace. Thank you for listening to this episode, this Christmas episode of Rethinking Christianity. I hope you've had a great Christmas season with loved ones. You have gotten all that you wanted this year for Christmas, and I hope that this new year is a blessed one for you, your friends, your family. I am Blake, and this is Rethinking Christianity. Thank you for tuning in.